Today, we celebrate President's Day. But why would we create a holiday about presidents? Is it about the office? Or is it supposed to teach us something? Hello, everybody. I'm Mike Beatonbaugh. And if you care about reviving our republic and rising above symbolism to dive into the substance we need, please hit the like, comment, and share so we can ensure a conversation about rule of law, liberty, and how the republic can prevail. So, the third Monday did not begin as a generic tribute to everyone who has occupied the Oval Office. It began simply as George Washington's birthday, which is February 22nd. But why would we want to celebrate the first president? Very good reason. Because when the War of Independence ended, it was George Washington who had held immense authority. He commanded the loyalty of the Continental Army, and the country revered him. If he had chosen to consolidate power to become something closer to what they would have thought of as a monarch at the time, very few people could have stopped him. In March of 1783, he stopped his officers who were prepared to challenge a weak Congress and overthrow the elected government. 9 months later, in Annapolis, Maryland, he resigned his commission and he walked away. The lessons of history gave a lot of permission for victorious generals to rule as they wanted to. But Washington said no, and those acts stunned the world. King George III reportedly said that if Washington relinquished authority and returned to private life as promised, he would truly be the greatest man in the world. And that distinction matters because the American Revolution was different from nearly every other revolution in modern history. Most revolutions began with noble language, liberty, equality, justice, but then they usually collapse into civil war and chaos. The French Revolution began with cries for liberty, but ended with guillotines in the public square. The architects of that uprising were executed by their former allies. Faction consumed faction. Idealism gave way to the reign of terror, and ultimately, Napoleon. The Russian Revolution overthrew a czar only to install a regime that imprisoned, starved, and executed millions, far more than the czars ever had. One tyranny had replaced another. That is the pattern of history, and it's predictable. Revolutions ignite with hope, but that hope goes down in flames as the original combatants begin devouring one another over the spoils of victory. Which is why what happened in America is so extraordinary. How did that happen? Because revolutions do not usually produce restraint. They produce radicals and, well, revolutionaries. But Washington's restraint created space for deliberation, for the Constitutional Convention, and for a presidency intentionally limited in power, an office he would later inhabit and voluntarily leave after 2 terms. Not because the Constitution forced him, because it was just the right thing to do. His leadership allowed the Constitution to gain legitimacy, to take root before faction tore the country apart. And yes, that did happen. 77 years after independence, the unresolved conflict between liberty, federal authority, and enslavement erupted into civil war. But consider this, in a world where revolutions often implode within months or years, the American experiment endured nearly a century before that breaking point. Peaceful transfers of power occurred again and again. Institutions formed, legitimacy took hold. That endurance was not inevitable. It was nurtured, and Washington was the leader that made that possible more than any other founder. He understood that the presidency must never become another reward for bloody conflict. He understood that legitimacy is more powerful than force, and that a republic survives only if its leaders choose restraint, especially when they don't have to. That is why Congress made Washington's birthday a federal holiday on January 31st, 1879, the first holiday to celebrate a man's birthday. And it wasn't personality worship. It was civic formation and an attempt to elevate the healing of a divided nation still suffering from the devastating effects of a divisive war. It was a deliberate elevation of virtue, restraint, humility, submission to law, and unity. Then, in 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, shifting the observance to the third Monday in February. Because, see, over time, there's been a lot of reverence for Abraham Lincoln, whose February 12th birthday had long been celebrated at the state level, but they blended it with Washington's observance. Now, Lincoln is worthy of the honor. His preservation of the Union and moral clarity in the face of the expansion of slavery deserve recognition. And there's nothing wrong with a federal recognition of both days, maybe, but its new focus was all about commerce. That's now turned into mattress sales and long weekends. But we have to remember it started with civic pride, lessons in civic virtue. And it's about the elevation of that virtue. Washington was not simply one president among many. He was the foundational precedent for all subsequent presidents. The difference between revolution and republic, the difference between chaos and constitutional order. Our revolution did not immediately devour itself, but it produced peace long enough for our Constitution to breathe and form and be empowered with the rule of law. And that happened because one victorious general chose legitimacy over domination. And it's something we need to be reminded of today. It's the greatest lesson. In an age when power is often admired for its aggression rather than its restraint, this is a lesson we need now more than ever if we are to revive our free republic. Take care.